Hey, what's up, man?
How you doing?
I'm doing good. How you been?
Good. I've got a 4-day weekend.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Decided they've had a good year and wanted to give us Christmas Eve as a holiday.
Heck yeah. I'm about to do a video on this thing.
You have fun, man.
Alright, we'll do, man. I think Trip is in there for sure. Tom is not in here today. Pow! What up, suckers? This is lugnuts.guapo coming at you from Pow! Maverick, Harley-Davidson, and Merry Christmas to you all. I think this video releases on Christmas Eve, if not Christmas. If it's Christmas Eve, I hope you're enjoying your Monday. If it's on Christmas Day, I hope you're enjoying your Tuesday, Christmas Day. Heck yes. So, police bikes, homies. That's what we are talking about today. If you're thinking about buying a police bike, maybe we have to discuss a couple things, maybe some things to look out for. And they're workhorses, and they will take a beating, and they buy them because they can do that with these things. And so some people are weary of them, and for good reason. But then at the same time, this could possibly be the bargain of a century right here. So if you're looking for a Harley and you want a solid powertrain, this might be a good option for you. Now, you will see a couple things normally on a bike like this. You'll see a little like scratch like right here, like right underneath the floorboards. The floorboards will be eaten up right there, and of course, you know, the heat shields and whatnot. So that's pretty normal on a bike like this. But we'll get further into it as we ride along. So anywho, roll the tape. Oh my goodness. Fire right up. One of the things that you will notice real quick, or if you've ridden police bikes in the past, you know this for a fact. If you have it in gear and your kickstand is pushed out, it will shut itself off. Kind of like a metric bike almost. But the reason why is, you know, police officers sometimes find themselves in a difficult situation where they have to act fast. And just imagine if it was still in gear and they popped the kickstand out to put it down, and then they jump off and the bike just takes off. I mean, you don't want that, right? So that's one of the safety measures that you will encounter with a bike like this. Now, one of the things that you need to consider, and why this might be a bargain, is because these bikes have a different cost. They're worth a separate value. Like if you were looking for a police Road King, the value in a police Road King is not the same as just a regular Road King, because there's different things. They're stripped down, and there's other things to consider. Like if you look at in some cases you have upgrades, such as the new Milwaukee 8 police bikes. If you get a police bike, it has a stock 114 in it. Yep. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the 103 police edition, I believe it came with a different set of cams. I might be wrong on that, but I have to double check. And I'm pretty sure that's what I heard, if I heard that right. So I mean, these are supposed to be beefed up a little bit. Now, the amount of electronics that go into these bikes when they're being built is very extensive. If you're not familiar with, for example, police cars, they spend a ton of money on all the cool gadgets that go on those radars and radios. And when I say radio, I'm not talking about like music, like radio for communication. And speaking of which, as you can see, this fairing does not have a stereo, and that's common. They just don't come with stereo. So we'll come back to that in a second, and I'll point out something about that that's very interesting. And we're gonna start off with things to look for if you're looking for a police bike. Actually, you know what? Scratch that. I will do that second. First, let's talk about why you would even consider buying a police bike. All right, like I said, the cost for one of these is going to be different, and that's because they're a little bit more stripped down. A lot of times, because of how intensely these bikes are used. If you're not familiar with how police officers ride these things, look up after this video. Look up police rodeo. It is pretty intense. That's why the floorboards, the heat shields, the engine guard are scratched. It's not because they crashed it. It's just because they really do extremely tight turns, and that's why they have like this little pogo stick seat deal. That your sitting position is a lot higher, and it's for leverage. Like you can lean the bike a little further, and you move counterbalance it with your body. It makes a huge difference. If you've never ridden it and ridden a bike with a seat like this, it's pretty interesting. It definitely feels different. If you're short, this is not a setup that you want, because you will feel it between your legs. If you have to come to a complete stop and you're in an emergency stop and you have to put your feet down, yeah, you're gonna rack yourself. So if you're short, this is definitely not the bike for you. I'm about 6 foot, and as you can see, I'm feet firmly planted on the ground. So if you're shorter than 6 foot, that's when you're gonna start noticing it becoming an issue. But why would you buy a police bike? Well, because it will be cheaper. That is true. They will be cheaper, and that's mainly because they're a stripped down version, and because a lot of times police officers will really ride these things hard. Now, if you want a powertrain, if you really want, like for example, if you want a touring frame, a touring chassis with the trailing forks, obviously look no further. This is a really cheap option, especially for a model. If you're looking for a 2014 or later, these could potentially be a really good deal. Now, the things that you need to look for, all right? So write these down. You have to look at the wiring harness. Look at the wiring harness right where the neck is, maybe underneath the pogo seat. If they look butchered up, that's probably not the greatest sign. A lot of times when they get turned in or traded in, they'll have to like strip a lot of wires out of it, because there's a lot of electronics, as I mentioned earlier, that go into it. So if it doesn't get wired back together properly, you will notice it. So wiring harness is definitely something that you have to take into consideration. You don't want to deal with that in the future. Trust me, it is a pain to deal with. Second of all, you want to make sure oh man, I just lost my train of thought. But see, what was the other thing that you need to look at on a police bike? Look at the tires, look at the brakes, look at the rotors, all right? Those are the things that will get worn out real quick by police officers. I mean, real quick, right? And one of the things that you need to ask for, especially if you're like us, like Maverick Harley-Davidson or even Longhorn Harley-Davidson, we service a lot of police bikes for many different cities around the Dallas area. And you want to ask for the service records. How many, when was the last time that the clutch was replaced, or just little things like that, just so you're informed to know what all has been done to the motorcycle. A lot of times, if you're buying from an individual, you have no idea what the history is behind a police bike, and eventually that could be an issue, if not almost immediately, because you'll find little things that are worn down that weren't replaced, and then eventually turn into a bigger issue. Now, if a city is leasing the motorcycle, which is something that they do very often, then the bike has to come back in really good shape, or they're going to end up paying for all the damages, anything that needs to be fixed or replaced on the motorcycle. So if the motorcycle was leased, you could very potentially get a really good deal on a bike like that. If the city owned them and they knew that when they were trading it in, it was coming soon, they might not take care of it, and maybe if it needs a new motor, they might not fix the motor because, hey, they're just limp it along and get a good deal on trade-in, and they don't have to deal with it. So if it's a lease, they kind of have to take care of that stuff. So most cities, about 90% of cities, will spend a good amount of money keeping these things up, because it is a big investment. They do spend a lot of money on these motorcycles. I mean, you're getting close to like 50 grand depending on how they set it up. I mean, that's a lot of money, so these things have to be well taken care of. So it could be a really good deal, because once you strip down all that extra money that was invested, get transferred to a new platform that they get on trade-in or on a new lease, you're gonna get the bare bones. So this is a good, you know, setup if you don't care about radio or anything like that. So because again, you don't get any radio. Now, if you wanted something that has a radio, or you want to be able to put a radio on it, I need to tell you that you cannot put a Harley-Davidson stereo on a police edition bike. And why is that? Well, because the wiring harness is completely different. Technically you can, but it's a pain, it's a headache. You have to replace the wiring harness. The ECM and the BCM are constantly telling each other, hey, this is not right, we were not designed this way, and therefore not work. And if you want to, especially connect it to like switches, you can't do that, because as you can tell, see this little red switch? You got those on both sides, and that's something that you'll see on all police bikes, and they're wired differently for different purposes. So aftermarket is the way you're gonna go. So aftermarket is something that you want to do anyways. Perfect. You'll save yourself a little bit of money, and you don't have to worry about it being wired differently. So that's something you need to take into consideration. So is it a good deal? You need to check out all the things that I told you about. Make sure that it's a good deal. And if you're buying it from a dealership, most likely there is no frame damage. At least they're not supposed to sell it to you with frame damage. And what I mean by that is, if they, you know how I showed you how scraped up the engine guard, the floorboards, all that, that's normal. But a lot of times they'll lean it almost way too hard and damage the frame by just scraping it real hard, grinding it down. And at that point, any damage to the frame is considered total. You need a completely new frame. So yeah, just look at this, little things like that. You can get a really good deal if you know what you're looking for. So make sure that you get the history behind the bike. If there's a service history, if the bike is where it's being sold, the maintenance on it, you want to know all that stuff. So this could be a really good bargain for you, especially if you want a touring bike on the cheap and something that you can put an extended service plan on. So this is you can really get a good deal. So police bike, is it worth the money? Let me know, comment below. And if you haven't already, subscribe and turn that notification bell on, and follow us on Instagram as Maverick Mav Harley, and on Facebook as Maverick Harley-Davidson, and check out our podcast MLHD, that is one word, on iTunes. And if you want to look it up on SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/ML-HD. check us out, give us your feedback. We love doing this for you guys, and if you want to see more, let us know. So anywho, in the meantime, get on your Harley and get some wind therapy. La 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 later. And there's my spot. Check out this tight turn, homie. Wow! Definitely not police officer worthy. Let's get another shot.